the art of thinking, the science of electricity. Now, on the surface, those sound like two totally different subjects, right? But what if I told you there's a powerful, hidden connection between how we figure things out and how the invisible world of electricity actually works? That's what we're going to dive into today.
So let's just jump right in with a bit of a puzzle. What in the world could fossil rabbits possibly have in common with electrical engineering? I know, it sounds like the setup for a really strange joke, but the answer reveals something fundamental about how we make sense of, well, everything. So what is that bridge between fossils and circuits? It's not some obscure fact or a piece of trivia. It's a method. It's a way of thinking. It's about learning to think like a scientist. And that framework is, of course, the scientific method. This is our toolkit. It's how we separate what's actually true from what just feels true, whether we're digging in the dirt for ancient bones or designing the next generation of microchips. You can really boil this powerful idea down to 4 basic steps. First, you just look at the world. You observe things, you measure them. Then, based on what you see, you form an educated guess, a testable idea. That's your hypothesis. And here's the crucial part. You have to test it. You have to try and break it. If it survives, again and again, then and only then can it be elevated to a theory. It's a constant cycle of being curious and then checking your work. This quote is just perfect because it hits on the single most important part of a good hypothesis. It has to be falsifiable. You have to be able to prove it wrong. The biologist J.B.S. Haldane wasn't saying he actually thought he'd find a prehistoric rabbit. He was laying out the terms. He was saying, hey, if you find this one specific thing, my entire theory is toast. See? If you can't say what would prove you wrong, you're not really doing science. Now, this all sounds great in principle, but there's a catch. The main tool we use for this whole process, our own brain, is, well, it's kind of buggy. It's full of shortcuts and biases that can lead us down the wrong path. So before we can use our brains to analyze the world, we have to understand our own built-in mental traps. These traps usually come in 2 main flavors. You've got cognitive biases, which are like unconscious thumbs on the scale, your brain making snap judgments without even telling you. And then you have logical fallacies, which are just plain bad reasoning. They're arguments that look okay at first glance, but completely fall apart as soon as you poke them. The key is learning how to spot these traps in our own thinking. Take this one, for example. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's a fancy way of saying, after this, therefore because of this. It's the mistake of thinking that just because one thing happened before another, the first thing must have caused the second. You know, I wore my lucky hat, and then my team won the game. The hat caused the win. That's a classic mix-up of correlation and causation. All right, with our critical thinking toolkit sharpened up, let's go apply it to a subject where we really need it, because it's a world we can't see directly. Let's head inside the invisible world of electricity. I'm willing to bet you recognize this picture. This is how most of us learned about the atom, right? You've got the little electron planets orbiting the nucleus sun. It's neat, it's tidy, and it's completely wrong. It's a helpful mental model to get started, but if we take it literally, we've already fallen into a thinking trap. The reality is so much weirder and honestly more interesting. An electron doesn't follow a neat little path at all. Its location is more like a cloud of probability. The source material uses a fantastic analogy here. Think of the flight path of a migratory bird. You know the general area where it's likely to be, but you can never pinpoint its exact location at any given second. That cloud of possibility, that's the electron's orbital. So what makes all of this electrical stuff actually happen? It really all boils down to one fundamental property: charge. And the rule that governs it is incredibly simple. Like charges repel each other, and opposite charges attract. That's it. That one simple principle is the engine behind everything from static cling on your clothes to a gigantic bolt of lightning. Okay, so we have charge, we have the basic rule of attract and repel, but how does it move? What are the rules that govern that movement? This is where we get into the real heart of how circuits work. First up, we have voltage. The best way to think about voltage is as electrical pressure. The perfect analogy is a waterfall. Voltage is like the height of that waterfall. The higher the drop, the more potential energy the water at the top has. It's not flowing yet, but it has all this potential to do work. That's voltage. And what happens when that potential energy is released and the water actually starts to fall? Well, that's current. If voltage is the height of the waterfall, current is how much water is actually flowing over the edge every second. It's the rate of the flow.
Now, here's a little historical quirk that trips up a lot of people. We now know that in a wire, it's the negatively charged electrons that are actually moving. But way back in the day, scientists took a 50-50 guess and they guessed wrong. They assumed a positive charge was flowing from the positive end to the negative end. And that model, called conventional current, is still the standard today. The crazy part? It doesn't matter. As long as you pick one model and stick with it, all the math works out perfectly. And all of this brings us to a beautifully simple equation that ties it all together, Ohm's law. It describes the relationship between voltage, current, and the third piece of our puzzle, resistance, which is just anything that gets in the way of the current. Think of it like a narrow spot in a pipe. As you can see here, Ohm's law simply states that voltage equals current multiplied by resistance. With this one elegant formula, you can analyze and predict what's going to happen in almost any simple circuit. It's that powerful. Okay, so we've got the theory down, we understand the basic rules of how charge flows. Now let's talk about what happens when we actually use this stuff, when we put electricity to work. Here's another spot where our everyday language can get us into trouble: the difference between power and energy. Here's a simple way to think about it. Power is about how fast you're using energy. Energy is the total amount of work you've done over a period of time. It's like spending money. Power is how fast money is flying out of your wallet, but energy is the total amount you spent by the end of the day. And whenever we use power, we want to be efficient. Efficiency is just a ratio of the useful work you get out compared to the total energy you had to put in to begin with. Because nothing is ever 100% efficient. You're always going to lose some of that energy, usually as waste heat. So the whole game is to make that waste as small as possible. So, why does efficiency matter in the real world? Well, money. Look at this chart. It shows the total cost to run 2 different light bulbs for 15,000 hours. The old, inefficient incandescent bulb, that'll cost you over $142 in electricity. A modern, highly efficient LED bulb that gives off the same amount of light, just over $36. That is a real-world impact. Understanding the science here can literally save you money. And that brings us right back to where we started. We just used a specific, structured way of thinking to unpack a really complex scientific topic piece by piece. I love this quote from the 18th century physicist Émile du Châtelet. She called hypotheses probable propositions. She understood that science isn't about finding some absolute final truth in one go. It's about building confidence. Every single time you test your idea and it holds up, you just add another layer to its probability. You become more and more sure step by step. So from fossil rabbits all the way to electrical circuits, we've seen that the most powerful tool isn't just knowing a bunch of facts. It's about how you think. It's about having a reliable framework to figure things out for yourself. So the real question I want to leave you with is this: what will you unlock with it next?